I killed those people. That's what I can be.
No, you can't. You're not.
I'm whatever Gotham needs me to be.
There's a lot of hype around James Gunn's upcoming DCU slate with films like Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, Clayface, Dynamic Duo, and more on the horizon. Projects like Swamp Thing, Teen Titans, The Brave and the Bold, and Elseworld stories like Batman Azteca show that DC is swinging big. But while everyone's looking forward, I think it's worth revisiting the past. Zack Snyder's The Dark Knight Returns could be the perfect way to wrap up missed opportunities in the old DC universe. It's gritty, iconic, and could serve as a powerful send-off while shaping DC's cinematic future. But if we take a step back for a second, there's still one major loose end that could be tied up beautifully, and that's with The Dark Knight Returns. It's not just a fan-favorite comic storyline by Frank Miller, it's a deeply layered, gritty version of Batman that's already inspired a good chunk of the DCEU. And let's be honest, even though Zack Snyder has stepped away from the DC scene, The Dark Knight Returns could be the one thing that pulls him back in and gives fans a real sense of closure. Now, Snyder has made it clear that he's probably not returning to DC movies. Warner Bros. Discovery doesn't seem interested in reviving his old continuity, especially now with the reboot happening. Still, Snyder himself has said that if he ever got the chance to adapt The Dark Knight Returns, he'd do it in a heartbeat. And that's where things get interesting. Because adapting The Dark Knight Returns wouldn't just be another cool Batman movie, it would be the perfect opportunity to wrap up all the missed moments, half-finished storylines, and emotional beats that the DCEU never quite got to land. For starters, it would give Ben Affleck's Batman a proper send-off. Affleck's version of Bruce Wayne is one of the most comic-accurate we've seen, tough, intelligent, and deeply conflicted. But despite being a fan favorite, his Batman only ever appeared in ensemble movies like Batman vs. Superman and Justice League. He never got his own solo movie, even though there were plans for one. Affleck eventually stepped away from the role, mostly for health reasons, but he did return briefly for The Flash. That made fans hopeful again. So giving him one final standalone movie, especially one based on The Dark Knight Returns, would be a respectful and powerful farewell. And then there's Jared Leto's Joker. Look, his take in Suicide Squad didn't win over many fans, but in that short scene from Zack Snyder's Justice League, the dynamic between Leto's Joker and Affleck's Batman actually worked. It was gritty, intense, and surprisingly nuanced. Snyder's version of The Dark Knight Returns could give Leto another shot at redemption, this time under the direction of someone who knows how to use him effectively. It would also build on their twisted history, which was only briefly hinted at before. Speaking of missed chances, remember that solo Batman movie Affleck was supposed to direct and star in? That project was going to explore Batman's personal battles, possibly featuring Deathstroke as the main villain. Even though The Batman by Matt Reeves took over the spotlight, a lot of fans were curious about what Affleck's version would have looked like. With The Dark Knight Returns, some of that vision could still be brought to life. It wouldn't be a full copy of that abandoned script, but certain elements, like the tone and the more mature themes, could find their way into the adaptation. Which brings us to Deathstroke, played by Joe Manganiello. He only appeared briefly at the end of Justice League, but even in those short scenes, the potential was huge. In Affleck's solo film, Deathstroke would have been like a horror villain, relentless, strategic, and deadly. He was going to hit Batman where it hurts most, possibly going after his allies like Alfred or Commissioner Gordon. And even though Deathstroke isn't in the original Dark Knight Returns comic, he could easily be integrated into the story as an added threat, helping to bring a modern edge to the classic tale. And then, of course, there's Superman. Henry Cavill's Superman already fought Batman in Dawn of Justice, which was heavily inspired by The Dark Knight Returns. But in a new adaptation, their relationship could take a different turn. Instead of being enemies, they could be reluctant allies, carrying over some of the tension but adding mutual respect. Cavill's Superman deserves a proper conclusion too, especially after that Black Adam cameo that teased more to come, only for those plans to get scrapped. So this could give him one last heroic outing and round off his arc. And what about J.K. Simmons' Commissioner Gordon? He's a great actor, and his version of Gordon had potential, but the DCEU barely gave him any screen time. He was supposed to have bigger roles in projects like Batgirl and the cancelled Affleck film, but that never happened. A Dark Knight Returns movie could finally let Simmons shine as one of Batman's most trusted allies, offering wisdom and support during Bruce's later years. Also, one of the most intriguing storylines in Snyder's version of the DCEU was the Nightmare Future, a dystopian timeline where Superman falls under Darkseid's control. We got glimpses of it in Batman vs. Superman and Zack Snyder's Justice League, but never the full story. Snyder originally planned to explore it more in sequels, involving time travel and an epic battle to save the world. Even though a Dark Knight Returns movie wouldn't follow that path exactly, it could give us a way to address or even avoid that grim future. Maybe it becomes a cautionary vision that influences Bruce's final decisions. Another emotional thread left hanging was the murder of Robin. In the DCEU, it's revealed that Dick Grayson was killed by the Joker, a loss that deeply scarred Bruce. Snyder wanted Carrie Kelly, the Robin from The Dark Knight Returns, to take up the mantle in his version of the story. Introducing her now would not only bring the comic to life in a new way, but it would also give Batman a sense of redemption and hope, passing the torch to a new generation. Plus, let's face it, Robin hasn't really been given his due in live-action movies. Then there's the villains. The DCEU has featured some of Batman's enemies here and there, Joker, Harley Quinn, Killer Croc, but most of his iconic rogues gallery was left untouched. Snyder had plans for a new version of the Riddler, and a Dark Knight Returns movie could bring in Two-Face, Catwoman, and the Mutant Gang leader. It would be a great way to show the full spectrum of Batman's challenges, both physical and psychological, in his final chapter. And ultimately, this could be the perfect ending for the DCEU as a whole. Even though The Dark Knight Returns is primarily a Batman story, Snyder could weave in cameos or scenes that bring back the Justice League one last time. Imagine a closing shot with Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg all standing together, something symbolic and emotional for longtime fans. It would be a heartfelt way to say goodbye to Snyder's DC Universe before the new era truly takes over. So while James Gunn's DCU has a bright future ahead, there's still something compelling about giving the past a proper send-off. A Zack Snyder-directed Dark Knight Returns wouldn't just be another Batman story, it would be a tribute to everything that came before. It would let the cast and characters who helped define the DCEU end their journeys on their own terms. It's poetic, really. Even though the timeline is changing, the legacy doesn't have to be forgotten. And that's why The Dark Knight Returns could be more than just a cool adaptation. It could be the final chapter that DC fans didn't know they needed. And that's what we have to say about how The Dark Knight Returns could change the future of DC. It's gritty, it's bold, and it just might be the cinematic reset the DCEU needs. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Would The Dark Knight Returns be the Batman story that finally unites the fandom?